Hello, everyone. It's myself and Cheryl, Eimear Stassen and Cheryl, the Eimear and Cheryl show.
Do I not get two names too?
I think we need to start that again and go like, more smoothly. The Cheryl and Eimear show.
No, you keep that. Cheryl Prince and Eimear. I was going to say we're both in a bit of a pinky punky mood today.
Yeah. I love your colors. And then I found this lipstick just before, and
I
I thought, oh,
know.
that's very pink, but it
I
just
like
matches.
it. I know. I feel like we needed to bring the heart energy in. And
Yeah, perfect.
yeah, because I know I needed colour because it's been a quite a tumultuous time.
Yes. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
needed uh we were just doing some protection practices before coming on and releasing energy. Because the work gets big, right? And I'm
Yeah.
talking about specifically, I'm just taking a pause because I'm just seeing absolutely what wants to come in because we are running the in bulk workshop on Thursday, the 1st, a new turning. Now, what I know about this time is it's about to turn into the time where it really cranks up for the darker side of witchcraft and the more harmful side. And I've experienced that myself with a very horrible entity attack this week. So I was sleeping and I literally felt an entity on my neck trying to strangle me. And this has brought up loads of things that I kind of said to you, I feel like I need to speak about this because it made me go deeper into the witch history than ever before. Now, I will say this happened to me. So some people will call this sleep paralysis. As a healer, I absolutely do not, because I think as a healer and a shamanistic witchcraft soul guide, as a sort of background, I know how important the sleep state is. I know that it's when your soul leaves the body, and I know where it's you can astral travel, and I work with that, and I'm in honor of that realm because I'm a multidimensional medium fundamentally. So it means that I understand that it's not all love and light out there, and that there are shadow realms and there are forces, and you need to learn how to protect yourself. And for me, I struggled to protect myself because that entity came out of nowhere. So I'm upping my protection practices. But the interesting thing was I was writing a scene for my play about someone feeling strangled. My play is about witch persecution in the 17th century and bringing it to justice today. And those spirits coming back to highlight that abuse and how it feels on the body. And it was that evening after I had rewritten some of my work that I experienced the entity climb on top of me and just had this pressure down my neck and an energy run all down my body. And it literally had to shout out, I do not consent. And it was restricting my voice. And it was only by the 4th time I got it out that the being detached and disappeared. And so I want to be really honest with that because I think there's a lot of people that go through this stuff and don't talk about it. Or there's a lot of people that are medicated for night terrors, which I think is quite dangerous because what can you consent to? Like, if you're deeper in the sleep state, I worry about that. Because I needed to say I don't consent. And I also think there's not enough awareness about it. And I think it's much more easier to talk out. And I even include my own journey about seeing the light and seeing nice spirits. Even seeing loved ones that are passed on is more acceptable than chatting about the demons and the entities. And so I wanted to bring that in today because it's so relevant to the witch persecution time. Because when you look at the court reports, you see people talking about conjuring up demons, entities, and these shadow beings, and then people blamed for them. So I just want to put everyone else in the shoes back then of somebody like me that had something attack them in the night. Now, why is it any different now than it was back then? And what would I have done? Would I have gone to speak to my priest about it? What would he have said to me? Would I have spoken to a family member about it? What might they have accused me? Or would I have kept it silent because I'm afraid that I'm the one that's conjuring them? And then what happened? We wiped out those healers and mediums that could see beyond the veil, and perhaps they talked about it. And where was the protection? And why I'm speaking about it now, today, is because these protection practices are so important to me, because I want to protect the people against these forces. And my feeling is something anti-life is conjuring up these forces. And then we moved into a time where we don't believe these forces exist, which is a very clever programming. And so I want to say, thinking about that puts the whole witch persecution and wiping out the healers in a new perspective. And while I would say that any innocent person being killed is abominable, there was a twofold thing. There was a fear put in, innocent people were killed, and crafts died out. And it's so important that we bring them back today and we honor them, and we realize that this is the spiritual war we've always been in. And so I think as this has happened to us, going around this witch's wheel together, we've just gone deeper and deeper and deeper. So that was my deep dive before we even get to our workshop. And I just wanted to know if there was like more depth that you were going into and what that was. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an entity attack, because it seems like my path is going down this way because I'm taking on satanic abuse.
Yeah, that's huge. And I felt so many sensations as you were sharing that as well, flowing through me. And yeah, quite woozy actually as you're sharing it. So as you're talking, I'm focusing on grounding as well. And I love so this will be our 5th Witches Wheel collaboration together at Imbolc. And the depths, like just when we think we've gone really deep, then more comes in. And it's really, really, really powerful where we're being guided, and how you're weaving the different aspects of healer together is amazing too. And at the end there, when you shared about wiping out the healers and their crafts, and that's where I feel I'm picking up the thread of this conversation. And where I'm being called to go is deeper. I feel like my grandfather on my father's side has stepped in, and to remind me of the gifts of his craft and his father, because both my grandfather, great grandfather were blacksmiths, working with the fire, working with the hammer, working with horses as well. And we're going into this time, as you said, of Imbolc and Bridget, and we're going to be diving deeper in to the story of the father, I feel, the divine father and that lineage, but also how can we best reconnect with our unique craft and our gifts that were lost, that were suppressed, that were choked out of us. And where I'm being guided to focus on, that's come in really strongly, is around the Brehon laws, which is this ancient legal system in Ireland that existed before the time of the Celts. And some even feel that it was around at the time of the Tuatha Dé Danann, the tribe of the gods, of who Bridget is one of those. So it's like it's all weaving together around this. And when we talk about, you speak of divine justice, and this is, I can't even remember if you said the words divine justice, but I
think I've said it so many times to you. I'm not sure I have that, did I?
Yeah, I feel like it wants to come in.
I will speak on that in a minute, because we have.
So these I'll be sharing aspects of these Brehon laws that are so connected to the poets, to the Brehons, to the judges, the storytellers, and in the divine form, not like the legal system as we have it now. So it feels really important to bring that ancient wisdom back, as many are doing. And for me, it's to come through the stories of my lineage, and that's what I'll be sharing. in our
Mm.
next witch's wheel.
And I literally got a tingle of delight when you brought up your grandfather and great grandfather, because my great grandfather is Cecil Husk, the
Oh,
famous medium. And when you weaved it back to then, and I was talking about, bringing back the craft, I was like, oh, yes. And then I understood there was I think what I love about how we work together is I'll bring you in the darker side of the craft and bring that into awareness. And then you'll bring me a mystery or a lightness that I'll be like, oh, yes. So it's a beautiful weaving, because my great grandfather is named as a fraudulent medium on Wikipedia. I have a big problem with who's behind Wikipedia. Check it out yourself whether they really can be relied upon. And after researching him for a long time, and one of the characters in my play is called Henry Husk, deliberately to give a nod to my great grandfather. And so my storytelling has been weaving, and just as yours, but I feel so strongly as a medium today, as a famous medium in my family. And what people don't know is the hardship that mediums went through because of the witchcraft laws. Because I think I spoke into this on our last workshop, because of the Witchcraft Act changing, and why was they changed, and who did it serve, and was the court really serving the people, which I love. You're talking about Rehan
yes.
Rehan laws. Okay.
Well
I
done.
was fascinated about that because I was speaking to you about divine justice. And as I've been redrafting my play about my own witch persecution that I've written, Awaken, after 7 years, I've been weaving through this story. And then I was saying to you, oh my God, it's about divine justice. And we were talking about that. And I realized that that's what it is. And the thing is, because my play does go into court, and the realization is this court cannot judge a soul. And the soul understands natural law or karmic law, which is what I have been fascinated with since the start of writing. What's karma and what's its laws? And how are they bent, especially by forces that know karmic law very well, those that know magic, harmers and healers, and how they bend karma so other people carry it. And that was the years and years and years and years that didn't land until I finally got to this place. So where you talk about those laws, which are different laws, which are fascinating, I'm bringing up like karmic laws and bringing that into people's awareness. And I think what's beautiful is we both do our work through storytelling. And so I want to ask you about, what stories are alive in you, and also bring in that this workshop touches upon theatre for the first time. I'm looking at the occult side of theatre, because as I've been looking into it, I've realized that sacred theatre, 5D theatre, let's say, multidimensional soulful theatre, already existed. There were people like Steiner doing it. There was people in Wicca, Gerald Gardner doing it. Aleister Crowley was even doing theatre. And ceremonial magic, putting a spell over, conjuring up things, and even understanding the journey of the soul was all happening in theatre. It was even what my great-grandfather was doing as a seance. He was getting people theatrically to see and understand souls. So I'm bringing back this craft because once again, in a different discipline, it's been put in the hands of harmers rather than healers. And it's time we took that back. And I'm doing it through being a playwright and writing my own stories. But I also inspire and know that loads of other storytellers are doing it in their own way. And is there something you'd like to speak into about how you're telling your story and what epiphanies you've had through that discovery?
Yes. So I'll be telling the stories around, it actually is my grandparents, my grandfather, my grandmother, and encounters I've had with them through healing sessions.
Yeah.
But also what's coming in strongly is where the little village that my father grew up in West Cork, there was this friary, this abbey called Timoleague Abbey. It's a ruin now. But there seems to be a great draw for me to go there. And I mean, I've been there loads of times, but to go there in our session on Thursday, because it was a school, at one stage, it was a school of philosophy and also where the books were written. So the Book of Lismore is one book that was said to have been written there. So it feels like there's gifts and epiphanies to be found there in
Yes.
this on this sacred land as well. And also inquiring into why, so while the healers and their craft were wiped out, also why Ireland and certain countries and certain areas were targeted as well.
Yep.
That's what we're going to be exploring too, as to why people came in, and it came down so heavily on these laws. So the Breton laws, it became illegal then under penal law that came in to basically to be Irish in the most native indigenous way. So these laws were brought in. So it's the same,
It's the
you know.
same, isn't it? There's
Yeah,
like, you
yeah,
can't be a medium, you can't be a healer, and you can't be Irish. So anything that's
yeah.
sacred, possibly, anything that's more ancient origin consciousness
Mhm.
is getting pushed out. And I think it's really interesting because we look at a lot of divided and repressed and persecuted groups, and we should. But I think it's often can be missed with Ireland and that great repression and how ancient it really is. I know I've heard a lot of stories about its true connections going through to ancient Egypt, which that was a history that I hadn't made the connection, but it makes sense in my heart and my soul. And also the same about what gets pushed out, like, oh, there's not spiritual persecution. But for me, that's the worst persecution there is, because if you get rid of soul's consciousness, you get rid of the wisdom keepers, you get rid of the sacred itself.
Mhm.
Ew, that's not a world I want to be in. That's transhumanism, right?
Yeah,
And so, yeah, there's loads that we'll be diving into about these exciting topics. And all of this fire and excitement and energy, there's also more things coming off the back of it. Am I
yeah.
allowed to speak into any of this, Cheryl?
Well, if you want.
You're like you. Yeah. Okay. So just talking to a little ripplings, but it's just, I think for the witch's wheel in particular, it's kind of grown legs of its own, hasn't it? And it has
Yeah,
been
yeah,
like,
definitely.
and what? So we've got the March and the May one, and
Yes.
we end
And
on the
June.
solstice.
Yeah.
And then your pop-up one that you were talking about in August. But
Yeah.
it's actually been inspired by a lot of other people as well, lots of amazing people doing the work. We've shared their work as who's inspired us along the way. So we're hoping there's a more exciting event to come to gather everybody around the wheel or the round table, and hear more voices on this topic, because I think all these topics need to be talked into, and it goes back to the passion that I had at the beginning of bringing the satanic and the sacred forward. And that's why our collaboration was so beautifully divinely timed, because I just don't think that you can ignore one without the other. Because, for me, the sacred is in the mediumship path and the connecting the spirit, and the satanic is in that demonic stuff and that attack and that harming the human soul and spirit. And both of those exist. And I think many of those that were killed for being witch understood that. They lived in times where that was more prevalent, and they just, got thrown to the wolves or harmed because the darker forces were getting away with it somewhere else
Yeah.
and not getting taken to court because the court systems weren't necessarily working for the people, like what you were saying about laws. And
Yeah.
so we'll share more when that unfurling arrives. It's something very exciting coming up. But then also that brought up about art as activism
Yeah.
and using storytelling and changing. And I know that that's something we're going to reweave in, but that we both shared our sort of call and response poem on the last workshop about what's not okay. And I think that that is a really powerful movement to step into. And when I talked about sacred theatre today and 5D theatre today, and this movement that I'm, wanting to bring forward and bring back in, is that what I didn't realize is I write in a very magical realism style. So I'm real about the magic. It's a genre I've always loved, magical realism in TV, theatre, and films. And what I only realized when I was looking into it to see whether I was hitting the beats of the genre in my own play, because I kind of wrote magical realism from being a real person that knows magic rather than studying it, was that a lot of magical realism writers are politically active, but what they mean is they usually represent repressed groups and highlight their stories, the underdog. And so I found that fascinating, that while I'm not political, I don't follow parties, I'm more socially engaged and raising awareness for the magical healer group that I feel has been repressed. So yeah, using art as activism has been really important to me, and something I'll continue to do as soul activation for me and anyone that gets to see my work. And so what has storytelling done for you? Because we really do focus on storytelling and helping others gain their own stories from their soul. And I'll be doing a guided meditation practice to help people dive deeper. But I know that you've been doing a lot of soul storytelling and diving deeper because we've been working together. And
Yeah.
what's turned up? What's that journey been like?
It's been massive. It's been a massive reclamation of my voice through healing the witch wound and delving deep. It is the portal now. The story is the portal, the way in to the deeper mystery that wants to be expressed. So for so many years, I was very comfortable sharing other people's stories or the stories of the myths or the goddesses, which are all beautiful. There's such a rich her story in through the mythology as well, which I know people love. And letting go of that, or not even letting go of it, but placing that to one side and going, well, what's my story within all of this, has been a really huge exercise and more challenging than I would imagine. At the same time, it's been a very humbling exercise to go in and really, I was going to say rewrite, but really honor what has been the story, what is the story of my soul. And there's parts of it that I think, oh, who cares? Like, who really wants to hear this? There's part, and I love in the teachings I've had with you, Cheryl, of that, the great magic that there is in amongst the everyday mundane. So, the epiphany that drops in while I'm sweeping the floor, or the encounter I have going on a tour with my family, like these, just living life in the everyday moments, not expecting anything. And then when something drops in, how it all changes. So the story is both the magical and the everyday, so that people can feel anchored and grounded, and that the story can help ignite something that's possible in others too. So it's
Yeah.
not just the story, it's how others feel activated after listening to, feeling, and visualizing the story within themselves. So it's been very grounding actually, and liberating, going into both the story of my ancestors and the story of my soul. And it just keeps on going.
Yeah.
Such a spiral.
And what have you found most difficult to talk about? Because I think you're so brilliant at bringing in I need to talk about, oh, this has happened. And you'll drop in and then we'll unpick it and it'll be huge and we'll go so much deeper. So I feel you have a very gentle channeling of looking at the world around you and it unfurling bits in you, but you also have the multi-dimensional medium gift of going within, which is what some call a Gnostic skill, where it's to search for the story and the wisdom inside yourself. I think you do both. And you spoke about, which is beautiful, about, it's harder than you think it is. And I know that I had a moment where I was like, I'm not going to talk about the entity. And that's why I started with it, because my mission has been to speak the unspeakable. It hasn't been easy, but it's like, I'm not going to stop here, because my soul is pushing me next level, next level, next level, next level. And this is how I bring healing to what's happened to me and others, the spiritual Me Too movement that I've talked about. And so, yeah, what have you had to push through to make it easier? What's been the wrestle for you?
Gosh, yeah, my ego.
Oh,
So looking stupid on camera or in any way.
yeah,
And also that it's valuable. So that's self-worth.
yeah,
This is worth sharing with people.
yeah,
Because I feel this, yeah, and it's also going back into that for the parts, like it brings up what isn't fully healed as well when you start going into that. So there's parts that feel gritty. As you go into the nitty gritty of it, I can feel that grittiness of like, oh, there's something else here that's
yeah.
wanting acknowledgement.
I
Um,
think,
yeah.
that's profound, because that's like a nugget, because I think everyone has that. So thank you for making that aware, that like, who am I to say this? Someone else will do it. I'm not, no, it's not down to me. And I think that's why, we've got something to come to celebrate all these people that have spoke out in any way, because they've been inspiring others to do the same. And we will change this paradigm if we all speak our truth. We honestly will. And that's why I do it through storytelling, but also speaking. And that the healing power of storytelling is immense. And that's literally why I run the whole of Channel Your Soul Story, because I knew that bringing your true story out, not the story that you thought you might tell, or the light-hearted version, or the story about a goddess over here, the true story of you in your soul, however that manifests, even if it's your soul just walking through life and the things that you choose to do rather than past lives and all of that, will be the biggest healing journey you can take. And it's painful, it brings up a lot of stuff. Like, I sat down and looked at Wake and thought, can I redraft this? Can I put this out there after all I've been through that's truthful in the tale, with my past lives, with my dad's illness? It's, all of that. And I think all that comes is, who am I not to? Like, who am I not to honor this sacred journey of life and my soul and any soul that's been lost? Who am I not to?
Yeah. It's really brave and courageous and helps so many people.
And it was the exact reason why we connected in the first place, because I came to you and went, thank you for speaking out on one of your first summits. Like, thank you for, bringing your truth in. So yeah, that's why there's more exciting completions of circles and things to come, and sacred lands to walk, and witches' wheels to bring into awareness. And is there anything else you want to share about the workshop, or?
So we put a link. We put a link in the description below, and it's 7 p.m. UK time on Thursday. And I can't believe it's come round so quickly, to be honest.
No, yeah.
And it's just at that most powerful time of the changing of the seasons. So really come along live, or you receive the replay when you purchase your ticket. And yeah, it's sinking in and going within with this really powerful energy that's with us right now, and learning from both of our stories and what wants to be shared in that moment.
And you'll
Looking
take
forward
us
to
on
it.
a little meditation journey as well, won't you?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. To give time for all that's shared to integrate and settle within us,
Yeah.
for sure.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for having a chat. And
Thank you.
yeah, I look forward to seeing people on Thursday and diving deep into storytelling, soul, and what really happened about the occult and sharing a bit more of that and laws and divine justice.
Divine justice is definitely the theme, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, thank you so much, Cheryl.
Thank
And everyone watching, we will see you again soon. Bye for now.